Safety Agency will return to the North Gauteng High Court today in a bid to stop the suspension of their safety permit. Transport Minister Blade Nzimande urged both parties to find an amicable solution to avert a national crisis, but the regulator slammed the brakes on PRASA last Friday, suspending its permit and giving it 2 days to stop operating. This after a train collision that left over 300 injured at a Kempton Park station on the East Rand. The Transport Ministry confirmed that an out-of-court agreement had been reached. We'll give detail of that as we get it. But also another story, the torching of trains in the Western Cape by unknown persons continues. On Monday, hours before the board of PRASA, headed by Khanyisile Kweyama, was to appear before the Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Transport, trains at Cape Town Central Station were set alight. PRASA and the Minister of Transport, Blade Nzimande, were invited to take part in this discussion, but they declined. But now from our Sea Point studios, we're joined by Janine, Myburgh, who is the president of the Cape Chamber of Commerce. A very good morning to you, Janine. We spoke to other participants in this conversation earlier on the show, the government, but we also spoke to civil society, who is trying to make society aware of the implications of the spending of trains. But the thread that kept coming out was that this was not necessarily a protest, but it was people trying to cover up corruption. Have you also had the same sense of this problem?
Yes, good morning, Deirdre. It's a major challenge, and I don't think we can find a solution until we find out who is behind it and what the reason is for it. Because currently we seem to be running around like a headless chicken and the problem's not being solved. I mean, I incidentally asked the CEO of the Joint Heads of PRASA on Friday afternoon what would happen if someone wanted to burn carriages this afternoon. And I was told that there were contingency plans in place. I should have just said what would happen if they want to burn carriages on Monday, because clearly the solution has not been found. I went to look at the trains myself on Monday. The devastation is terrible. It started in one truck or one train set, and it jumped the rest. It even affected the building upstairs, the heat. But there has to be found, a solution has to be found. It affects business, it affects all sectors of society detrimentally. And we don't have enough train sets to carry on. Understand, we are under 40 train sets and we need in excess of 80 train sets.
Have you been able to measure what specific areas have been impacted by these incidences?
It's an immense negative impact. I mean, even if you don't use the train, you are still impacted by the trains. People are unable to take trains, and those of us that are fortunate to have cars will then get into our cars. So there's gridlock, and you sit for hours on the national road. People, businesses, they don't know if their staff's coming to work. Staff don't know if they are able to get to work. And if they do get to work, it's immensely traumatic for them to have been on the trains. I've been on the train, and I don't know how these people survive. You literally get pushed off your feet to 2-3 meters into the train, and you can't move. So the trauma of getting into the train, getting out of the train, and then potentially not even getting a train is something that has to be taken in consideration. We recently did a survey asking questions about how it impacts the viability of businesses. 86% said they are concerned as to the viability of their businesses due to the trains not being on time or trains burning. But they said 94% of their staff are negatively impacted, and the trauma that it affects the staff, and it's a long-ranging challenge that we haven't even begun to measure, that the trauma that it affects us.
As a Chamber of Commerce, you have membership. What are your members saying about this?
I mean, they are up in arms. I get daily messages as to ask, what are we doing? What are we doing to solve this problem? I haven't got one good message that I've heard regarding this. It's a challenge for each and every person. We're getting learners and students that are unable to go to school or to varsity. So there is nobody that is not negatively impacted by that belongs to the chamber currently.
Is the Chamber putting up any campaigns in terms of awareness and trying to find out what's at the root of the problem?
Very much so. We had a study we consulted to get a study in February this year. We made it available to PRASA, and it came out that basically that's the lawlessness. There has to be a strategic coordination of trying to solve the problem of or to create order. The fact that copper theft is still a major problem, and then infrastructure, and potentially the fact that the management and the management I know in Cape Town are doing their best. They are often hamstrung because the decisions aren't made in Cape Town, but most of the higher ranking managers all have acting before their name. There's a rotation of staff, there's a rotation of board, and it doesn't give stability and it doesn't give structure to be able to address this problem.
So Janine, tell us about your interactions with the Department of Transport and PRASA. What is being discussed in terms of finding solutions?
Well, with our interactions with PRASA, we are trying to address it. We give them our views, but you can also understand they can't publicize the security plans to everybody. There's a continuous pressure point that we are put on, but I must say it seems to be frustrating because we aren't getting anywhere. I mean, I had this meeting on Friday afternoon, and on Monday the trains were burning. So we have to find a solution, and it appears that our intelligence is severely lacking. There is an immense amount of speculation. If you talk to anybody on the street, each and every person has got a suggestion as to who it is, potentially the people who are benefiting there, but nobody's got a real solution. And we have to find the intelligence to solve this problem. We can't be losing much more trains. I mean, then the rail regulator might stop the license, but there'll be no need because there aren't any train sets running.
So Janine, what's the way forward?
There has to be a concerted effort of all security forces, police, working together. We've heard before there's various committees and things working together, but we don't find a solution. We must have money put aside so that this thing can be investigated properly. Because if we don't, our infrastructure is being destroyed. And no city can run effectively or economically viable without a running and a safe and secure infrastructure, and we do not have that currently.
Well, Janine Myburgh is with the Chamber of Commerce in the Western Cape. Thank you so much for your time. Let's take a look.